Hey everyone, Vincent here from CreativeDojovia.net. Sending this video tutorial, I just want to quickly go over how I created this nice audio wave using After Effects and Trapcode form. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be creating today. So as you can see, nothing really too complicated. It's actually very basic, and of course the audio reacts to music. Now this video tutorial was actually a video request from someone in the Creative Dojo community. So if you guys have any further video requests or ideas, don't hesitate to contact me or leave a comment down below. So the person actually asked me on how to create this native instrument Razor audio wave as shown in this video right here. This kind of wave effect right here. So notice how the whole thing doesn't displace, it kind of displaces in the front, it kind of just flows back. So it's not a whole sound wave, it just kind of affects the front and then it kind of flows backwards. So you kind of have that nice organic flow in the back, and you'll run into some problems when trying to do this with form. Initially I kind of did this with form and I didn't really know how to achieve that nice flow, kind of flows into the back like that. I played around with the flow, I played around with the displacement, and I just couldn't get it with all the basic knowledge I know of form audio reaction. So I hit up Peter Norby, the founder of Trapcode, and he was really gracious enough to help me with this. So I just wanted to share a little bit of what I know about the audio reaction and what Peter told me to do. So we're in After Effects here. Let's go ahead and create a new composition. We're going to name this Audio React. Mine's going to be 720p at 24 frames a second, 10 seconds long. Hit OK. And let's go ahead and create a new solid layer. We're going to name this BG. Make comp size. Hit OK. So we just have some nice black a black solid in the background, just so we have a nice background rather than having some transparent alpha channel. And then I'm going to create another new solid, hit Control Command Y, and we're just going to call this form. Make comp size again, hit OK. And let's go ahead and drag in form onto this layer. So Trapcode form. Now if you don't have this plugin, it's probably because you didn't purchase or buy this plugin from Red Giant. So head over to redgiantsoftware.com where you can download your free trial of Trapcode form to follow along. Once again, if you don't have it, you probably didn't purchase it, so don't freak out. So we have form right here in our base form. Nothing has changed. I'm going to quickly set up a little demonstration to show you some of the initial issues I came up with while trying to achieve this effect. So you don't have to follow along in this part. I'm just going to show you some that I ran into. So I'm going to change the particle to particles in Z to 1. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. And let's go ahead and go to the fractal. So initially we want to control form with music and pretty much displace it. So watch what happens when I displace everything. So if our audio controls the displacement, you can see that it kind of affects the whole form. Now if I change it to individual, change the X back to 0, and just displace the Z, you can still kind of see that we're still displacing the whole form. We're not displacing just the front part or one side of it and it's flowing backwards. It's pretty much displacing the whole thing. So if I tell the audio layer to displace a Z displacement right here, it's going to affect the whole thing rather than just one part, and it's not going to flow backwards. And that's where I was kind of stuck. And it's actually a very easy solution to this. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here and just crank this one down back to 80. So we have some subtle Z displacement right here. So now that you've seen the issue, let's go ahead and try to fix this. So first things first, if you look in the video right here, you can see that there are strings, they're not necessarily particles. So we want to choose the strings, box strings. So now they're strings of particles, and by default they're kind of thick, so we can go ahead and change the density of the strings so there'll be less particles in the string. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit wider. Keep it at 690 for the X. Size in Y maybe about 450. or so. Size in Z, we can set it to 0. And strings in Y is pretty good. 70 is a pretty good value. We can always go back and change. These are all arbitrary. Let's go to the string settings right here, where we can change the density down to 10. So, you know, it's a little bit less dense. And then we can go down to the audio react, which is probably the most important part of this tutorial. Let's go ahead and bring our audio layer in. So now we have to tell Form to use our audio. So in the audio react tab, under the audio layer, we're going to tell Form to use this audio layer to control Form. Now we have to open the reactor 1, which is pretty much a factor, like what is it going to affect Form of. So we want the time offset to be 0. We don't want it to be offset at all right now. Frequency is the frequency that Form is going to look at and analyze. And this frequency is going to be used to control Form. So for an example, if you wanted to use the base of your audio to control Form, you want to set a relatively low frequency. If you wanted the highs to affect Form, then you want to crank the frequency up. So it all just depends on what you want and what your song is. If it's techno, if it's dubstep, you kind of want to change the frequency accordingly. But for my track, I find that 170 works pretty well to control Form. Now the next parameter is the width. And it pretty much just defines how wide the frequency response is so that Form can sample it and use it to sample how loud the audio is. So my width is at 50 by default. I'm going to change mine to about 100. So if you kind of want to kind of narrow the frequency down, you want to select a pretty narrow width so you can kind of narrow that frequency down. But for me, I just want my width to be pretty wide. Now the threshold is pretty much the minimum level or volume required so that Form can pick it up and use it as audio reaction. So if you have a lot of background noise, a lot of very small subtle noises, you want to kind of crank this up a little bit so that none of that will affect Form. So it's kind of like a volume limit for Form. So I'm going to set mine to 80. So just the relatively loud sound is going to affect Form. And the strength is pretty much how much strength you want to punch into Form right here. So I'm going to set mine to 120. And map to is pretty much the factor or the actual reactor that's going to happen and apply to our Form layer. So we can use our audio layer to control the particle size, particle opacity, disbursement, anything you want virtually. But for this demonstration, I'm going to use the fractal. So our audio is going to affect our fractal field of Form. Now delay direction and delay max is the parameter that we're actually looking for right now for this tutorial. This is what Peter told me to do to get that nice kind of flow movement right here. So you can see it's nothing, it's all flat right here. And as audio reacts, it starts in the front and it kind of just flows back like a shock wave or a sound wave. And we can do that by using the delay max and delay direction. So right now we just have a flat grid of particles and I'm doing it flat so we can easily see what's going on initially. So right now we want it to flow and start from the left side to the right. So we're going to select X left, X right by default. Now the delay max is going to be the length of the delay buffer, or how long is it going to take for the next wave. So I find that about 0.5 works pretty well. As you can see already, you kind of have that nice flow effect already. So before, let's go back here. Before, when we set it to 0, you can see that everything is kind of displaced at once. So the whole Form displaces together. But if we set it to 0.5, it's going to start here first, and it's going to flow to the right, as you see here. So let's go ahead and random preview this. So as you can see, initially it starts from the left and it kind of just flows to the right, and that's what we're after right now. So now that we have that pretty much set up, we can go back to Form and kind of just tweak the rest of the settings to make this thing look a little bit nicer. So let's go to the particle tab. I'm going to change the sphere feather down to 0, and then I'm going to make the size about 0.5. It's rather a little bit large for now. We want very nice thin strokes of strings right here. And then we can make the color a blue. Really dark blue. And because it's in additive mode, we want to make a relatively dark color, and it's all going to add in together later. And then we can go down to the fractal field right here, and to give it a little more variation, we can change the effect opacity to about 1, or rather the size to 1. So just have a little diversity right here, some little imperfections, I would say. And displacement at 80 is fine. I want to really crank up the flow in X to about 900. So we really want things to flow to the right. So not only are things going to start from left to right and just flow back, it's really going to flow back to the right. And then flow evolution, we want to reduce it down to about 25. We don't want it to move that quickly. So that's looking pretty good. Let's create a new camera. Layer new camera. And we'll call it camera. We can uncheck depth of field for now. We don't need it. You can always add it in later. And then we can go to the rotation of the camera, hit R on the keyboard, and change the Z rotation to 80. Just so we have some slight slant. And then we can hit C until we get the orbit tool right here. Just click here and find the orbit camera tool. And we can just rotate the camera until we find a really interesting angle. Maybe something like that, and then we can just zoom in here. Just keep on hitting C until you toggle to the right tool right here. Just click and select the Track Z camera tool, so we can kind of just zoom in. You know, something like that. And just pretty much fine tune and just fix your angle till you get a really interesting angle. And let's go ahead and do a quick little RAM preview. So now we're actually getting what we want. Things are flowing and starting from the left side, and it's kind of flowing to the right, and things just flow back, which looks really nice in my opinion. And this is where I wanted to get before Peter's help. So that's pretty much it. We can go ahead and continue fine tweaking this and making it a little bit better. We can select a darker color like that, and then we can maybe apply a nice glow. Searching glow, drag that into the form layer, and you know, play around with the threshold. Now in the original demonstration here, I added this nice kind of gel liquid effect by using the vector blur effect under blur and sharpen. Just drag that into the form and change the type to perpendicular and just play around with the amount. And ridge smoothness. Just so you can get a nice kind of jelly effect. You can just zoom in a little bit. Of course, you can do whatever you want with this tweaking here. This is just my personal preference. I like to add a little vector blur to all my little form renders. So let's do another quick little RAM preview. And just like that, you created a very interesting and very easy audio visualization for your audio tracks, whether you're a DJ or a sound designer, sound producer. It's just a really nice and quick way to create some visualization for your music. I love doing audio visualization tutorials, so look forward to those in the future as well. Of course, you can add multiple angles. I believe in the original demonstration from Native Instruments, they pretty much did the same thing, except with different angles, as you can see here. So pretty much the same thing over and over again, just a really long wave of audio reaction and strings, and it's just all at different angles. So you can create some pretty decent and really cool, interesting looking designs with your audio, doing the same thing over and over again, just with different angles and different tweaking. So just play around with the angle of the camera, play around with where everything is, and play around with the little parameters. And you should get some pretty interesting audio visualizations using Trapcode form. So this has just been a really basic tutorial on the audio reaction and some of the quick parameters and the delay direction, delay max of Trapcode form. Many thanks to Peter Norby for explaining some of this to me, and really great way to just make a really quick audio visualization. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys have any further questions, don't hesitate to leave them down below in the comments. If you have any video requests or ideas that you want me to do or cover, go ahead and contact me. Leave a comment down below or message me via my contact page or my email at vincent@live.com, or hit me up at Twitter at twitter.com/VincentWin. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all the support. Don't forget to leave your comments down below. I love hearing your feedback. I love hearing your responses. Thanks for watching, guys. My name is Vincent Wynn from CreativeDojovia.net, and I'll see you guys the next time in the next video tutorial.